the beehives and the honey. Like the beehive is a biosensor, right? And the bees are literally out there flying around collecting data, which HiveTracks has the ability to analyze, looking at the beehive and the honey production. So this is, just to be clear, we're in our first year of this program. So we're still very early days. We installed our first hives last year. So we haven't even gone through a full cycle yet, but it's really, really cool that the HiveTracks platform. So HiveTracks is really the intelligence and the software, right? They work with local beekeepers, qualify the beekeepers who are, the eyes and ears on the ground, as well as managing the beehives themselves.
Welcome to the Solar Maverick Podcast, where we explore the people, technologies, and ideas shaping the future of energy. I'm your host, Benoy Thanjan. On today's episode, I'm joined by Matt Coleman, the Managing Director at Skyview Ventures and Davis Hill Development. Skyview has built a unique platform that spans renewable energy finance, project development, venture investing, and EV infrastructure. During our conversation, Matt shares how the company's evolved from being a leader in the renewable energy credit markets to developing community solar projects, investing in clean energy startups, and building fleet electrification infrastructure. We also discuss one of the most innovative initiatives I've seen in the solar industry, HiveTracks, a biodiversity program that uses beehives as environmental biosensors to measure ecosystem health on solar sites. Matt explains how the data can help improve habitat restoration, strengthen community engagement, and demonstrate that solar projects can leave land in better condition than they found it. Finally, we dive into agrivoltaics, the future of solar plus storage, venture investing in clean energy, and Matt's advice for clean energy entrepreneurs building the next generation of companies. If you're interested in renewable energy development, biodiversity, community solar, agrivoltaics, or investing in the energy transition, you're going to enjoy this conversation. Let's get into it.
Hello and welcome to the Solar Maverick Podcast. I'm really excited on this episode to have Matt Coleman. He's the CEO of Davis Hill Development and principal of Skyview Ventures. I've actually known Matt for a very long time. I'm excited that this is his first podcast and he's doing it on the Solar Maverick Podcast. And on Tuesday, May 5th, Skyview Venture, a US-based solar energy developer and investor focused on distributed generation, is expanding a unique initiative that's turning solar farms into biodiversity monitoring hubs powered by beekeeping and environmental data. Matt, welcome to the Solar Maverick Podcast. It's great to have you on.
Thanks, Benoy. Good to be here.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe if our listeners are not familiar, maybe we could start with, can you give us an overview of Skyview Ventures and Davis Hill Development?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of folks will know Skyview Ventures through our REC or SREC business. Skyview's been, was early in the days of New Jersey and Massachusetts SRECs, providing financial solutions for developers and investors of solar projects who needed a little more certainty around the value and outlook on renewable energy credits. And so Skyview built up a business in those state level, regulatory markets. And so Skyview is known to a lot of folks in the environmental attribute world as a provider of financial solutions. And that's still our biggest business today is environmental commodities involved in different flavors of RECs and carbon credits. About 11 years ago, decided to start investing in solar projects ourselves. Now, the original intent, the original business plan of Skyview was always to be an IPP. Andy Koretsky, the founder and president of Skyview, always admired Jigar Shah and the business model that he had created. And so Davis Hill Development was a natural evolution of what Andy wanted to create. So we started developing commercial solar projects under the Davis Hill Development umbrella, like I said, a little over a decade ago. And at the same time or similar time, we also started another infrastructure company called Sky Chargers, which is focused on electric vehicle infrastructure. And that business today is really focused on fleet electrification, charging where there's a hub and a little more predictable activity. And then over that time frame, also opportunistically saw opportunities to invest in technology companies that were, improving aspects of what we were doing or reducing friction, as we like to say, in different aspects of renewable energy or electrification of vehicles. So we started investing in technology companies, and Skyview has done about 30 investments in startups over the last 15, 16 years, all related to, renewable energy and in one way or another. And that kind of lends itself to this conversation about HiveTracks and how, Skyview can look at a technology, and Davis Hill can look at an infrastructure opportunity, and we can kind of marry those things together.
Yeah, that's a great overview of Skyview Ventures. For me, it's amazing to kind of hear the progression just because I met Andy when he first started Skyview around 2009, 2010, and just to see like all the different things that Skyview is involved in. And then you've obviously been there for a very long time now, and it's amazing. The team too, as well. An amazing team of people.
Yeah, and it's some of those team, like our head of development at Davis Hill was originally at one of our venture companies, Origin Solar, Benoy, if you remember.
I,
Yeah, so and just for the listeners, so Origin Solar was developing greenfield solar sites as a service. So the developers would hire them to go out and find the best sites. They had a proprietary geospatial engineering process. And so we invested in them. They ran that business very well for a number of years. And then the CEO wanted to go do something else. So we actually brought that business in-house, and brought in the head of development to be our head of development. And that really started our foray into community solar development.
yeah, I mean, that is really interesting from my perspective because the founder of Origin Solar and I were close. I was actually an advisor for Origin
Yeah.
Solar, and then I brought the opportunity to Skyview. And then
Yeah.
obviously, like I got to know Tori
Yeah.
Hanna when he was with obviously Origin Solar,
Yeah.
when he was in Massachusetts, and then to see the progression, and how it was brought in-house under the obviously Davis Hill development entity. It was just, it's interesting how like life and things work out and how everything's kind of intertwined, and it's a small world. And solar, even though solar's expanding exponentially, I feel like it's still 6 degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon still.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
everyone knows someone who knows even whatever company. And I'm sure like that's an important aspect too, of how you work with different partners, look at different project opportunities, partners, venture opportunities, obviously people you want to work with on the SREC side, just because like, you have so many relationships with so many people within the community, and you're also working on a lot of different aspects, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the benefit, I mean, there's multiple benefits of having this relationship between Skyview and Davis Hill Development, but certainly one is, the phrase try before you buy. Like, the fact that, we use the example a lot of Raptor Maps, which is, leading drone-based asset management software company that, we were able to, we were already utilizing their service at Davis Hill Development for some of our ground mount projects, and then learned about this was a company raising a Series A, and they were early stage, and were able to participate in that round and a subsequent round, and obviously they've gone on to be very, very successful. But just that nice collaboration where we could actually not just due diligence on the company, but we're a customer and a very happy customer, and that kind of relationship has been quite beneficial.
Yeah, that is huge. And I know a lot of some of the portfolio companies as well from Skyview Ventures investment arm. And it's interesting because I've the Raptor Maps obviously has a great product, and it was interesting to see that Skyview invested. And it's interesting to get your perspective of like being a customer and then finding that they're trying to raise capital. So you've already kind of done your due diligence in a sense. So.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I know we're focused to talk about really like the innovative work that you're working with HiveTracks. I love like the background that you have. A lot of people in the industry have heard about pollinator friendly solar, but this program seems to go a lot deeper because of the data layer. Can you explain how HiveTracks uses honey, pollen, environmental DNA, and biodiversity metrics to track ecosystem health?
Well, I wasn't planning on this, but since I was just talking about raptor maps, drone-based analytics where you got little things flying around. It's the same thing with the beehives and the honey. Like the beehive is a biosensor, right? And the bees
Yes.
are literally out there flying around collecting data, which HiveTracks has the ability to analyze based on looking at the beehive and the honey production. So this is, just to be clear, we're in our first year of this program, so we're still very early days. We installed our first hives last year, so we haven't even gone through a full cycle yet. But yeah, it's really really cool that HiveTracks platform. So HiveTracks is really the intelligence and the software, right? They work with local beekeepers, qualify the beekeepers who are, the eyes and ears on the ground, as well as managing the beehives themselves, who, by the way, for us as asset owners, that's other people kind of on our team who are on site. And, frankly, we'll get text messages saying, hey, we noticed this is going on at the site. So it's nice having kind of, extra folks on the ground helping us with the vegetative aspects of our projects. But, the HiveTracks platform itself has the ability to look at look at the honey, understand, are we detecting pollutants, right? Are we detecting, microplastics even, right? What they can look at and find out is actually very impressive through their lab work and the hive sensors, I think they call it. And so based on the range, that the bees are flying, they can determine really very accurately, what are the native or invasive species, and then we can put together a program for seeding, vegetative maintenance, and things like that. But this is a long-term program that we're working on.
Yeah, I appreciate you defining like HiveTracks and obviously talking about the comparison between Raptor Maps and HiveTracks and how it's similar and obviously different in its own ways. But it was interesting to hear about that comparison. Why is it important to actually measure like biodiversity and land health over time instead of just saying like a project's pollinator friendly?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think taking a step back, this really comes down to kind of our industry, which and kind of how the solar is obviously very, very much more prominent than it was, when we started out, right? But we're still kind of early days, right? We talk about these projects, and in our mindset of solar project developers, it's really getting projects built, financed, operating. But these are 20, 30, 40-year assets, right? And it'd be nice if we could put solar on rooftops only and just in the built environment and never have to touch farmland or land that could be used for other purposes. But the reality is we need more clean electrons. And, there are certainly there are areas on the ground that make sense to put solar. But at the end of the day, we want to leave that land in better shape than when we found, right? And certainly, solar projects on the ground naturally will let the soil restore, and there's ways to do things to help the soil restoration. But from our view at Skyview and Davis Hill Development is we feel very strongly about land stewardship. We feel very strongly about supporting the agricultural economy, and believe that if there are little things that we can do to help not just the soil beneath our solar systems, but the habitat around our systems, those are things that we as an industry should be doing. Because frankly, our projects may not be needed at those sites 40 years from now, and we want to leave that area in better shape than when we got there.
Yeah, that's a great point. Obviously, like the whole land importance and making sure that the land is in great shape after, the solar project, or as you mentioned, 20 to 40 years. It's interesting because that actually let me think about like and you know this very well, Matt, like permitting and getting like the township approval. Like how has like townships, I know this is still relatively new, reacted to like you implementing like HiveTracks on your projects, and can you talk to the response that you've gotten?
Well, I can say that, so we haven't, showing up with a jar of honey hasn't changed anybody's mind yet. No, we haven't, like I said, we haven't, this hasn't, I don't think, influenced the permitting process too much, but it will. And certainly, I think what it does is, and certainly a lot of the, may not be the people sitting behind the desk making the decisions, but the community at large, right? They want to know that if you're coming into their neighborhood, into their county, their community, right, that you are going to be a positive contributor to their community, right? So I think there's a lot of things developers do to check the box to get through that process and get their permit. But the reality is we want to do more than that, right? We want to make sure that we have a positive impact because, there are network effects, right? Like if I endear a community to my project, and not just the landowner who's making money off of the project, but the neighborhood who, and maybe it is just getting, free honey at the local farmers market, but it's more just showing that, hey, we're taking this land stewardship seriously. Here are the steps we're doing to help your local environment, your local ecosystem, and we recognize that we as tenants, meaning that we don't live there. We're renting land. We are just people who are, there short term, even if short term means 20 or 30 years. But we're going to show you and demonstrate to you that we're more than just producing clean electrons. We're going to be a good part of this community. So I do think it will be quite beneficial during the permitting process going forward, that we'll be able to point to specific projects in a specific area and show that here are the things we are doing, right? And here's the impact on the community. And we can do the same thing in your area as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's huge because a lot of developers won't take that extra effort to do that, and it's a differentiator and has, as you mentioned, like a network effect. And then once the honey gets produced, are you selling it as or providing it as Skyview Ventures honey, or have thing or brand?
There's a very small sky view on the label. Yeah, no, listen, this is not for brand recognition, nor do I think Skyview. We're not a consumer brand, Skyview. So no, listen, the honey is great. By the way, I love honey. But there's certainly, it's a nice secondary effect for what we're doing, right? The biodiversity, the habitat improvement, all the things we're doing on the site is our primary objective, right? The bees and the honey production is really the secondary effect, right? So yeah, we will continue to give away honey to a lot of people. I think we'll have enough that we'll start selling some at some point. But the bigger issue is if we can use it as a way to get the message out, to talk about the benefits of what we're doing, it's a very low cost kind of marketing, advertising cost for what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate you going into that. And I know like what states are you really focused with with the honey program, and where are you starting it out? And
So right now we're in Maryland, New York, West Virginia, and I think Connecticut. And it's really interesting, right? Because the flavor of the honey, the color of the honey is so dependent upon not just the geography, but the what is growing there, whether it's wildwood flowers, clovers, right? So just in our first batches, you really see a really interesting diversity in the type of honey that we're producing. And again, we're trying to start off as broad as possible. And then, within Maryland, we'll have 3 or 4 different locations, and you'll be able to start applying learnings from one site to the other. on some of the habitat and invasive species types issues.
Yeah, definitely. That's really interesting. I'm sure you never thought that you would learn so much about honey.
No, no, I never thought I'd learn so much about honey. I'd never thought I'd have to utter the words. I need to interview a shepherd next week. Like because we're doing, looking at sheep for some of our sites. So yeah, there are definitely certain aspects of this career that I never thought were going to come true.
Yeah, so that was actually my next question, which is interesting because you kind of went into it. Is like, what other like sort of initiatives are you looking at outside of honey? Obviously, you just mentioned like sheeps and grazing. Can you talk about maybe some other initiatives that Skyview Ventures and Davis Hill Development are looking to do? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, for agrivoltaic related, combining agriculture and solar voltaics, certainly this is one initiative. We are, where possible, working with whatever sort of agricultural activity exists on site. So, I made the joke about sheep, but yeah, we're if on a farm in New York where it's a cattle farm. They wanted to expand into sheep on their site, so we were able to design our solar facility, separate from the cattle operation, but still allow rotation of the animals, and obviously we get the vegetative maintenance benefit out of it, but working with the farmer on also what works for his operation, which is great. We do have sites where they continue to grow and bale hay. So obviously we designed our layout and racking around the machinery and the equipment needed to do that. We're doing our first cranberry bog this year, right?
Oh,
So up in Massachusetts, where other folks have done that as well. So there's nothing groundbreaking there, but again, just taking advantage of racking options today and knowledge of how to do these types of solar projects combined with existing agricultural operations and having those both work in conjunction with each other.
yeah, I really appreciate you explaining just because I feel like obviously agrivoltaics is getting more and more popular. Obviously states like Massachusetts was one of the first to do a pilot program. We're seeing that in other states. Obviously, to get farmers on board and to educate them, like, I think this is a real opportunity for farmers to diversify their income and maybe use less arid land, or where you could use land for multiple purposes, not just solar, as you mentioned, like the grazing example. Can you talk to that? Like, really, like the opportunity with doing solar on farmland since you've been doing agrivoltaic projects?
Yeah, and I don't think there's one. I think there's a lot of debate about, is it better to, if you've got I'll just say 20-acre property, is it better to, space out your solar, allow agricultural between the rows, or is it better just to kind of push all the solar to one side,
Mhm.
the soil where you do want to allow it to lay fallow for a while and let the soil health improve over time. It really is, like everything in life, it really is very site specific on what really is the best solution. But certainly the most important thing is having your farmer, your landowner, willing to engage and be your partner, right? Because this is a long-term partnership, and figure out what is the best solution for his property. Because yeah, I think for our industry to be successful, to continue to have the agriculture industry survive through a lot of tough times, which now again is one of those challenging times. Yeah, it's fantastic if we can pay them higher on a per acre basis than they're currently getting for whatever crop they're selling right now. We can essentially provide them a very long term edge, right? And for a lot of these landowners who this is a family farm, been in their family for generations. They want to ensure it's going to stay in their family. We can help provide some certainty that saying, what, here's some guaranteed income for the next 20, 30 years. It's extremely valuable.
Yeah, that's a great point. I appreciate you talking about that. Obviously, farmers having a difficult time, and then having a stable sort of cash flow stream from essentially the lease payment for using the land solar versus like the variability based on, crop production and prices. Is it, obviously economic opportunity. And the point too that you've made about, and I've noticed this too with our development, is like each farmer is unique in their own way and they're looking for different things. So that's so true that you have to come up with a customized sort of solution,
Yeah.
which is great. I appreciate you explaining that. Going back to HiveTracks, like HiveTracks provides annual analysis and recommendations. What kind of changes can, Davis Hill make at the project level to improve like habitat conditions, pollinator diversity, and overall land stewardship? I know you talked about some of these points in some of the prior questions, but just to
Yeah. Yeah, and let's reconnect in 2 or 3 years when I've done some of these. But yeah, I mean, already, like if we can get them on site, before we even start the installation, right? Which is what we've been trying to do, right? It starts from, not necessarily where you're laying out the panels, but if there's any modifications to the access road or the laydown area, right? If we can identify certain types of vegetative species on site that are going to be more beneficial versus some of the invasive species, which we're going to want to remove anyway, it really helps us do some of our site planning, right, from the very, very start. And then now that we're starting to get some intelligence on the bees are starting to provide some of that intelligence, it's okay, we can identify when's the best time to do our mowing schedules, right? What are the species that are blooming certain times of year, and we want to make sure we don't interfere with that, so we can adjust some of our mowing schedules or vegetative maintenance schedules. We're identifying invasive species that we want to remove, or certainly limit growth over time. You know, when we do get them on site from the beginning, and when we do have that intelligence before we start doing any seeding at all, obviously that can inform, what is the best species to seed, and where, and how much. So there are some benefits we're already seeing, in informing some of our sites where we're just getting construction started.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate you explaining that. That's really helpful. And looking ahead, like what does the future of multi-use solar development look like? Do you see more sites combining clean energy with agriculture, biodiversity, stormwater management, resiliency, and other community benefits?
Absolutely. I mean, listen, I think this is certainly one area where I think our industry is very collaborative, right? Not just conferences that are focused on agrivoltaics, but I think sharing best practices for these types of things just benefits everybody, right? And I know some of the industry associations are getting specific groups together to talk about this stuff, but I think if we can figure out how to cost effectively implement agrivoltaic programs, it's certainly been much more beneficial for our industry, and certainly United States in general, in terms of keeping as much agriculture and cost effective agriculture, and cost effective solar, both working together. A lot of the biodiversity and habitat protection, again, I think recognizing that we're part of a community, and we need more winning stories that we can tell at these permitting meetings and community meetings, that we're not just, building projects and walking away, but really establishing ourselves in a community, and that we're here to help them kind of preserve their ecosystems over the long term. The better we can do that, the better our industry is going to do. You mentioned resilience. I wish I could say we were doing more for resilience. I wish we could say that we were working hand in hand with the utilities on some, implementing some great programs, but I think that's a little more challenging. But certainly, I think anything within our control, partnering with landowners, we're going to see a lot more of that in the future.
Yeah, definitely. That's really helpful to know. And then are your projects right now only solar only, or have you been looking at solar plus storage or standalone storage?
We are primarily solar only. We do have a couple battery projects, solar plus battery. We have not done any standalone batteries. Certainly, as we speak here in May 2026, and the regulatory environment is presenting a lot more standalone battery opportunities. We certainly will. We have been developing some of those, so I think we'll see some of those in our portfolio eventually, just given where the tax credits remain and where the opportunities will be.
Yeah, definitely. And then obviously you mentioned in the beginning of the interview, I could be saying it wrong, the Sky charging stations.
Sky Charger, yep.
Yeah, Sky Charger. Where are they located? I remember that there's Sky Chargers in Connecticut, right? What other states?
We're mostly in California nowadays,
Oh, okay.
and yeah, yeah. So we have assets in Connecticut, New York, but most of what we're doing now is more, like I was saying, more fleet electrification,
Okay.
right? So if you've got a um, a warehouse with delivery trucks that are electrifying and need a central charging station, charging location, those are the types of projects that we're working on mostly nowadays.
Yeah, I appreciate you explaining. And then is there anything about that we haven't spoken about related to Skyview's partnership with HiveTracks?
I mean, I think I'll just go back to the where I kind of was speaking earlier about the relationship between Skyview and DHD is that I think HiveTracks, like Origin Solar, like Raptor Maps is just a great example where, Skyview can look at an early stage company and Davis Hill can look at them for as a service provider and just say, yeah, this is a fantastic service that we would love to pay for. And that creates a more interesting investment appetite and opportunity for Skyview. And HiveTracks may not be your traditional venture and investment, but it aligns with our core beliefs and what we think is the best for the industry. And we're very happy to be working with them on implementing the program with us, and certainly I'm here to promote HiveTracks to anybody else out there who is interested in, really enhancing their biodiversity programs at their sites.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate you explaining. And then the Solar Maverick podcast is about solar and entrepreneurship. Skyviews obviously and Davis Hill are very entrepreneurial companies. You were at Skyview. Maybe you were the third or fourth person, I feel like,
I
at a
think
certain
four. I think fourth. I think fourth. But yeah, it's been really exciting. I mean, yeah, we're about 30 employees now, I think, and it's been really, like you said, it's being in an environment where we are entrepreneurs supporting other entrepreneurs. It's just a fantastic ecosystem to be a part of.
Yeah, and, what, like, advice would you have, like, for, early stage, clean energy companies that might be listening to the podcast? People are looking to found companies. Obviously, you worked with a lot of founders and looked at a lot of investments in early stage companies.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's plenty of problems to solve, right? And I think as an entrepreneur, I think you want to ensure that what you're creating or what you're trying to achieve is different, is differentiated, right? So I think you can be able to clearly articulate what differentiates your company, your service, your product from anything else out there on the market, right? And I think you need to ensure there is that good product market fit, right? Because I think a lot of times the challenge is this the right product at the right time, right? Is the market ready for it, right? I mean, I think I can say with our 30 venture investments, some of those were great ideas, just at the wrong time, right? You
Yes.
look at, I'll use bidirectional charging as an example, just to say bidirectional charging is a great idea in some applications, but you have to have the cars that can do it and
Yeah.
the infrastructure that can handle it. So if you were a bidirectional startup 10 years ago, it was not a good time to be a bidirectional startup.
Yeah.
Versus now, there's a lot of cars coming to market. There's a lot more opportunities to do something with bidirectional charging. But so yeah, I think for as an entrepreneur, you might have a great idea, but you have to make sure that the time is right for that idea to get to market.
That's a great suggestion. That's something that rarely people talk about.
Yeah.
there's so many ideas or so many companies built around things that, it's not the market's not ready for it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that-
No, it's timing is very, very important.
yeah, and then your background's really interesting too. Like, before you worked at Skyview, can you talk about your background and how, like, what made you want to be in clean energy?
Ah, man. So I'll go in reverse order. So yeah, so I joined Skyview. Before that, I was doing solar development and finance for a company called Clean Focus, which became Clean Focus Green Skies. And before that, I was actually more on the investment side of renewable energy. So yeah, I've always had a passion for renewable energy. I went to business school out in California in the early 2000s because there was only two states doing renewable energy in 2000s, California and Massachusetts, and I liked sunny weather, so that's how I chose Los Angeles over Boston. But it's something I've always had a passion for, and I definitely wanted to be on the energy side versus the environmental kind of cleanup side of things. But when I was talking to Andy Koretsky at Skyview about things he needed, it was like, well, I need someone to help evaluate venture opportunities as well as develop solar projects. And it's like, well, I've been an investor in clean tech and I've been a developer of clean tech, so this is a great fit for me. So I think it's been the Skyview um, platform, being able to approach renewable energy, recognizing that there's value in the commodity aspects, there's value in the technology, there's value in the infrastructure, right? And be able to deploy capital in all those areas. It's really been a kind of a fantastic opportunity to be a part of this the past decade.
Yeah, definitely. That is really interesting. Like, just how, there's not really many people, if you think about it, even now, who have experience analyzing venture opportunities in clean energy and project development. So it's a really unique skill set. And then obviously, Skyview being a smaller company that gave you the opportunity to use both of those skills. And that's really interesting to hear.
Yeah. No, it's been great, and obviously the team we've built is fantastic, but I think the partners that we worked with over and over through the years, it's a really great ecosystem to be a part of, and like you said, it's a lot of entrepreneurship and a lot of people with ideas, and really doing great things in our industry.
Yeah, definitely. Well, this has been an amazing interview, Matt. I really appreciate you making time to be on the Solar Maverick podcast, your first podcast interview. I appreciate the opportunity. If our audience wants to learn more about Skyview or Davis Hill Development, or specifically about you, like, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, obviously, please reach out to me on LinkedIn if you'd like to learn more. Happy to chat about this. Happy to connect you with HiveTracks if you are interested in really kind of implementing a program similar to ours and really learning more about how your solar projects can implement a better biodiversity program. Certainly, skyviewventures.com. We list our portfolio companies and the type of investments that we do. So all you entrepreneurs, if we can be helpful, please reach out.
Yeah, definitely. That will be on the notes of the podcast as well. Thank you, Matt. This is really interesting, the work that Davis Hill is doing with HiveTracks, and I appreciate you sharing what's happening and also providing a lot of clarity on a lot of different things that you're working on.
Yeah, thanks, Benoy.
Oh, anytime. Thank you.